I'd say bare minimum, you don't need any credit card debt. 25 grand in the bank is what I started with when I bought my first truck. I proceeded to lose 30 grand within the first 10 weeks. Don't ever get into a fixed rate situation as an owner-operator. That's terrible. Unless they're really stupid, they have to pay you a bare minimum rate where they can still turn a profit when the market is terrible. It has to be that way, or they'd go out of business. If they were on with a fixed rate carrier as an owner-operator,
about 10 miles.
they're still getting paid $1.50 or $2 a mile. It's like, when things are good, you want things to be really good. You don't want to be capped at some crappy little fixed rate that they agreed to pay you. If you're a company driver and you're thinking about making the jump and becoming an owner-operator, I'm going to go over what things you need to consider. If it's a good idea, if it's not a good idea for everybody. I mean, no matter what stage of your career you're in, even if you've been driving 20, 30 years, it might be better just to stay as a company driver. And I'd say for the general market, broadly speaking, from 23 through 25, I think the scales have kind of been tilted towards being a company driver. And of course there's outliers. I mean, there's company drivers that have done terrible and there's owner-operators that have done great. But there's always going to be outliers. But I'm just talking about regular freight. You don't have established contacts in the industry. You're not hauling, Conestoga loads. You're not doing real big, heavy loads. You're not hauling really high dollar, high value freight. You're just you're hauling Pepsi or Procter & Gamble loads, or you're doing, your regular reefer, whatever you people pull in the reefer units. Or you're doing, for flatbed, you're doing like, I don't know, steel beams or coils, just the easy stuff that anybody can do without a whole lot of thought and effort. The first thing you have to know before you ever get started, or you have to be comfortable with, is you have to be comfortable going a week without getting paid. So you don't just make money every week. You have weeks where you make money, and then you also have weeks where you lose money. So that's the first thing to consider. If you're not at a point financially where you can go several weeks without a paycheck, you shouldn't even consider it. And then beyond that, you need to consider how much money you need for your personal living expenses. Like, how are you going to survive as a person? How are you going to support your family financially? And then on top of that, well, how much do you need for an emergency fund or a maintenance fund for your equipment? Because these trucks, when they're brand new, I mean, it's 2026, these trucks cost you could probably get a decent used truck for $100 grand. Or you could get a truck for 50 or 60 grand that probably require a little bit of money and work put into it to get it road ready. But they're out there. But the equipment, if you're talking about equipment that's costing between, when it's new, 150 to 250 or 300 grand, depending on the kind of truck it is. It costs a lot to maintain that equipment. Regardless of if you bought the truck for 50 or 60 grand, that doesn't mean you're going to have cheaper repair costs moving forward the whole time. I mean, your labor cost can be similar to what it would be for a $200,000 truck. So, and most of your repair bills, just to you're not going to have too many repair bills that are less than $1,000. I mean, most of the time, if you're doing, I mean, unless you just run up to the parts store and you grab an airbag and you put it on yourself, or you do some shocks or a brake job or whatever, you can have some repairs like that are in the lower hundreds. But if you're putting the truck in a shop, for most things, you're dropping $1,000 or more. You got to plan on some repair bills. And how much do you need for a maintenance fund? I mean, it depends on how much you have set aside for your normal emergency fund. If you got a medical problem come up, or somebody in your family has a medical issue come up, or somebody loses the job, before you become an owner-operator, you have to have your personal finances in line. If you don't, you're going to have a pretty rough go at it. You definitely need to have, you don't need a lot of credit card debt, and you don't need debt from consumer spending. You don't need any of that short-term, like, revolving credit card debt. You need your credit cards paid off. You need to have your finances in line.
I got that habit, boy.
If you...
How about it, Rob?
If you try to get started as an owner-operator and you've got a bunch of credit card debt and you don't have any savings, I mean, I'm assuming if you have credit card debt, you don't have any savings, or else you would use the savings to get rid of the credit card debt, high interest debt, You're really set up to fail. I mean, that's why the failure rate for owner-operators is just astronomically high. Like, people just want to jump into it as quick as they can. I'd say bare minimum, you don't need any credit card debt, and you need to have 25 grand in the bank is what I started with when I bought my first truck. And then I proceeded, after I bought my first truck, I proceeded to lose 30 grand within the first 10 weeks. I blew an engine in a DD15 running a Freightliner. Lost 30 grand right off the bat. Then went back and I stayed an independent contractor. I drove 1099 for another Landstar fleet owner. But you need to plan on, all your planning needs to be geared towards the worst case scenario. You need to plan on all the worst case scenarios for everything, and you need to structure everything where you'll be okay if all these bad things occur, and the income, while all these bad things are happening, repairs and just freight market being worse than you expected, and your income just being less while you have repairs at the same time. And if you really want to be smart about it, you should factor in, what if you had, what's your homeowner's like insurance policy? What's your deductible for that? What's your deductible if your car got in an accident? Like if your personal vehicle got in an accident, you needed a deductible for that. You needed a deductible for your homeowner's insurance, and you needed whatever your deductible or max out of pocket is for your health insurance. If you factor all that in and then start setting money aside on top of that for the trucking business side of things. And that's really just bare minimum before you even start considering the other issues and asking more questions about who should you lease onto? Should you lease onto anybody? Should you just buy a truck and get your own authority right away? But those are questions you do want to ask after the basic financial hurdles. Once you check off all those boxes, you get into, you could look at lease purchase. Should you lease? I don't think you should do that. I'm sure there's people out there that have been successful with it, but they're kind of the outliers. That's a bad structure. You don't want to be leasing your equipment from the same people that are giving you freight. And I don't think you should really lease on with any carrier that's going to pay you a fixed rate. Any carrier, whether it's, Landstar's a percentage, they're not a fixed rate, but there's carriers out there that will the company that I started with PAM Transport. If I was to become an owner-operator or a lease operator with them, they had a fixed rate. They were paying their owner-operators just like they pay company drivers, but they paid them more. Don't ever get into a fixed rate situation as an owner-operator. That's terrible. Because the company, they would be the dumbest people in the world if they ever structured that to where they paid you enough. You know, if they paid you a fair rate, assuming a good trucking market, they have to, unless they're really stupid, they have to pay you a bare minimum rate where they can still turn a profit when the market is terrible. But the problem is you're getting paid that rate on all your loads. Every load, every mile you haul, every load you haul, all the miles are paid at the bare minimum. It has to be that way, or they'd go out of business. So don't ever lease on with any carrier that wants to give you a fixed rate for your mileage. It should be a percentage of the revenue that the loads are. It has to be that way. There's no way anybody could convince me otherwise. I mean, unless if it's, I guess there could be a situation where if it was like an exclusive, like a heavy haul operation, and that's all they did was really high dollar freight, and that's how, you know, I mean, but if you're in that situation, you're going to know it's good enough money. But for the most part, don't ever do a fixed rate deal with any carrier. It should always be a percentage, because you're getting paid the bare minimum on all your loads. So whenever the freight market's great, I mean, I remember we were turning, you know, $5, $6, $7, $10 a mile loads, and these people that signed up with the if they were on with a fixed rate carrier as an owner operator,
about 10 miles.
they're still getting paid $1.50 or $2 a mile. It's like, when things are good, you want things to be really good. You don't want to be capped at some crappy little fixed rate that they agreed to pay you. And when things are bad, I mean, things are going to be bad for everybody, but they've been bad for you the whole time if you're on a fixed rate. So I would use that as a kind of a filter to get through the worst of the worst. And then you can start comparing the people that'll pay you a percentage. And the big ones will be like your Landstars, Mercers, and there's a lot of them that are mid and large. You know, you can look through them. I'm not going to go through an exhaustive list, but so there's the middle and large carriers that'll lease you on, and then you've got the smaller ones, like probably people that are a little more established than I'm at, but they've got an authority and they want to lease owner-operators on. That, honestly, if you know somebody that's willing to lease you on, that might be the best way to go. And that's a big risk. Like, I don't know that I'll ever add any trucks to a fleet, but that's a big risk and for a little bit of money in return. And the bigger carriers, they have an advantage. They can save you money on insurance costs and everything. They spread the risk around, you know, on insurance and stuff like that. So that's the next thing to consider. Or I guess it might not be the next thing. The next thing would be, what kind of equipment do you want to run? If you want the least risky way, the lowest risk is always going to be cash equipment. Let's assume you're not paying cash for the equipment, though. Let's assume you're financing it. Well, you want to try to finance stuff through, you know, local bank or credit union. I mean, you want to get the lowest rate possible for your financing. But the type of equipment you haul, or the type of equipment you use, or you're looking into buying, older pre-emissions equipment is always going to be better. You don't have to mess with the deletes and everything that you would with newer equipment. And if you run cost of operations just went through the roof. And your income went down because you're going to be experiencing a lot more breakdowns. If you're not experiencing more breakdowns with newer equipment, then you're doing a lot of maintenance. So you got the truck always in the shop, you know, getting DPFs cleaned out, and getting problems taken care of before they happen. And you can't, I mean, if you're real good about that stuff, then I guess you could stay on top of it, but you're just putting yourself in a much more compromised position by running new equipment that's not deleted. I would not recommend it to anyone. If you're a new owner-operator, you want to tilt the scales in your favor as much as possible because it's real easy to go broke in this business. So the best thing you can do is get an old, I mean, I like Caterpillar, but the old Detroit, like 12.7 liters, there's a lot of people that swear by those.
Roadwork reported ahead on I-35 north.
The Caterpillar 3406Es, 6NZ C15s, 7CZs is the 16-liter version. But any of those engines are really good. And I'd say look at the engine more than you look at the truck. Like whether it's in a Freightliner, Peterbilt, Kenworth, it doesn't matter. Get an engine that's going to be reliable. Get a Caterpillar or Detroit or old Cummins, you know. I'm not as familiar with older Cummins engines, but I think those would be any of the pre-emission stuff. Anything like 2002, I think halfway through the 2003 year models is where they started turning south. So if you just want to look at it based on the year, look at a 2002 or older. And if you want a pre-ELD truck, I think that cutoff is like 2000 or older. You need to look that up. But it's information's out there. And these, I mean, I got a long hood truck with an older engine, but you can get, I mean, they put these engines in aero, you know, in the aerodynamic trucks that are more set up to haul drive-in and reefers and stuff. And it's, if you really wanted to be the smartest about it, that's probably what you'd do, is you'd buy an old aero truck with an old pre-emissions engine in it. And then if you want to, everything's risk versus reward, really. If you want to de-risk the purchase itself as much as possible, then just buy something that has an existing warranty. Buy a truck that's got the engine rebuilt by the manufacturer and has a warranty that's still on it. So when I bought this, there was not an existing warranty, but I had paperwork from Butler Cat that did the rebuild. And it was within 250,000 miles of its rebuild. The warranty had expired because the guy that owned it before me just did like local, he did like road work and stuff, like construction. He was hauling gravel and asphalt, I guess, around with it. So, but that's the least risky way you can become an owner-operator, is to do pre-emissions engine for whichever truck manufacturer you're going to go with, and do it with an engine that's been rebuilt already, and you'll pay more for that, but the banks will like that better. You know, the banks, as far as the financing goes, the banks will be a lot more comfortable with the purchase if it's been rebuilt and there's a warranty on it. But really, those are the things to consider. So my time with Landstar, and Landstar may not be the, you know, they're probably not the best for everybody, but I didn't have a bad experience with Landstar, really. I did pretty well with them. I pulled a dry van with them, and then I pulled a step deck with them, and I rented a step deck from them for 1 month. As soon as I rented the step deck for 1 month, I decided to go ahead and buy my own step deck. I knew I was not going to go back to dry van after that. And it wasn't so much that I just like loved tying down flatbed loads. It was my fuel efficiency got better because this truck is not set up to pull a dry van. It's a mid-roof. So it was the fuel efficiency, and it was the competitiveness of the calling about loads. I noticed on the dry van load board, if you don't call about something within first few seconds of it being posted, you know, there's a lot more drawmans out there calling about those loads. And so flatbed or step deck loads, and I'm sure it gets even better if you're pulling an RGN, you know, or specialized trailers. There's even less competition, but there's just, I mean, some of the loads I call about, they've been sitting there for hours, or some of them have been there for more than a day.
2 miles.
And they haven't,
Take the
you know.
exit onto US 62 East and
So I really appreciate that fact about doing flatbed step deck type work. Is just not feeling like I've got to call about loads instantly. But I mean, it's still good to call about them as quick as possible. I guess I've already kind of talked about it, but where are you getting the freight from? Like, are you going to be self-dispatch, or are you going to get someone to dispatch you? I've always done self-dispatch. I never really had a problem with it with Landstar. But it worked out pretty good. They've got good technology there. Load boards, they got the website you can use, and they got apps. They're apps, you know, where you can access everything from your phone. But that's not for everybody. That'll be something that weeds out some people. You know, some people just won't be able to book their own freight. That doesn't mean you shouldn't be an owner-operator. You could. There's people you can hire to dispatch you. And if you got a family member that's familiar enough with trucking, I mean, or you could teach somebody how to, if you got a spouse back home, you get them to just look at that load board, make sure your truck's always loaded. That's probably the best dispatcher you could have, if, you know, if they've got free time and are not working a full-time job.
Use the right 2 lanes to take the exit onto US 62 East and I-35 North toward Wichita.
Well, and then some people would struggle, I don't think many people would, but would struggle with, like, keeping yourself busy, because you don't want to be real lazy. If you're an owner-operator, I mean, you're not going to have a dispatcher telling you, go pick up this next load. Like, you could just sit around for a lot of time. You haul one load, make enough money to pay your bills for the next week or two, and then just hang out for a while. So if that's the kind of person you are, you're probably not gonna, I mean, you could survive, I guess, but you're not gonna do very well. You're probably better off having a dispatcher tell you where to go all the time.
In about 1 mile, keep right toward Tulsa.
But I'm sure I left something out. If you're a company driver and you're looking at becoming an owner-operator,
stay in the second.
let me know what I didn't answer,
right, go past the
and I'll try to do a video. Just, I mean, all I can speak from is my own experience. So, and everybody's experience is different. Everybody's situation is different. So, I can't tell you what to do. I can just tell you. I can tell you from my experience how things were. I can tell you, I mean, right now I'm doing, like, I've got my own authority, so I can tell you how that experience has been. I can compare that to my experience with Landstar, and I can compare it to my experience as a company driver. But you gotta do the math and figure things out and make sure it's gonna be right for you.
We're about 29 miles. Continue straight.
It's always better to have more money. So if you got 15 grand saved up and you're like, I just want to go ahead and do it, don't do it. Just keep saving your money. I mean, I started when I had 25 grand saved in the bank. And I had debts when I started driving as a company driver. I had credit card debt, so I had to pay off debt first. But I probably should have waited until I had 30 or 40 grand saved up. But yeah, I was just getting the itch, and you know, I really didn't like working for the company I was at, and I knew I wanted to become I just wanted to, like, stay in parts of the country where I just wanted to travel where I wanted to travel to. I didn't want to spend as much time in New York and stuff like that. I just kind of wanted to haul loads where I wanted to haul them to, and I really hated the earning earning the whole, like having to work 3 weeks and then get a few days off kind of thing. I just like to be able to take time off whenever I want to take time off. So that's really the biggest benefit of being an owner-operator. Sometimes you can make more money, but it's really just about your freedom and just being able to kind of do what you want. And I feel like there's probably a lot of people that are attracted to trucking for that reason. Like even becoming a company driver, you probably like not having a boss looking over your shoulder all the time. So just being out on the road away from people. But anyways, let me know in the comments what I didn't cover, what you'd like me to cover more of, and I'll shoot another video covering that, or I'll just answer it in the comments. But y'all take care, stay safe out there. I'll see you in the next one.